Hello, holistic low carb family of women over 50 and people who want to age healthy for longevity and not to have to live with disease. My subject today is why you want to stop eating sugar now, today, as a woman over 50. There's so much controversy over this. And if you don't have a weight problem, then you don't have a problem with sugar per se, because you could have a little bit and it's not going to poison you. But if you already have insulin resistance and you were like me, where it gave you brain fog, depression, and you just kept gaining weight every time you would take a bite, then that is more of a dysfunction of blood sugar dysregulation and a metabolism that isn't functioning. And if you've ever had brain fog, if you've had diagnosis of gestational diabetes or PCOS, and at any time in your life you gained weight and had to lose the weight, then you're more than likely going to it's going to cause you to be what's the term, metabolically dysfunctional, to the point where weight gain and sugar is a metabolic poison for your body. The problem with sugar is it wasn't meant to be eaten 24/7 all the time and as a refined food. We want to have our diet to be more ancestral based and to have food that's going to actually nourish our body, so we're not starving at the cellular level, that we're getting the nutrition we need at the cellular level. But unfortunately, the food system has hijacked your taste buds. Most people, unless you're already on a low carb diet, and I was there too, I was hostage. It's holding your health hostage. Your taste buds have been hijacked by chemicals. UPF foods are ultra processed foods, and that's what's predominantly out there in the standard American diet. And if you don't know about this already, if you don't understand it, I'm here to tell you and educate you why you don't want to be eating these foods and really the truth about it. Yeah, it's not going to poison you in the moment. It's not like arsenic. It's not like a poison that's going to immediately cause you to have a problem. But long term, you're going to end up with brain dysfunction and disease, and that leads to Alzheimer's. There could be Parkinson's and dementia in there, because it just depends on how your brain gets damaged. But sugar will damage your brain, and it leads to prediabetes and then diabetes. That is the diabetes situation that's happening. If you're prone to weight gain, like I was, if you have the DNA to be overweight and to be fat, and from my understanding, is 50% of the population is already obese. That means everybody, and then 80% of the population is insulin resistant. Insulin resistance is a pre-diabetic state. So sugar on that type of body is poison. And if you cannot stop at one bite, then it's going to be a problem for you. That's where I was. I couldn't just eat one bite. I would inhale all of it and everything. Do you guys remember the snack whale sugar cookies that they told you could eat because there wasn't any fat in them back in the 70s, 80s? I guess it was the 80s, because my son was already born. He was born in 1987. And one bite of those, and I ate the whole package. I could not control my sugar cravings. That was awful. And here's the truth from an obesity survivor and someone who's lost 100 pounds. Believe me, it has been a fight my whole life, and I will never go back to sugar. I could not have lost that weight if I kept sugar in my diet. And let me explain to you also what sugar means. When people in my industry talk about sugar, sugar is the glucose load on in your body. Glucose, you eat sugar, you eat simple carbohydrates, you eat ultra processed foods, they break down into glucose in your body. That is the sugar load in your body. That is the technical term for it. In a way, I don't know if that's super technical, but it is the process that when you eat sugar, when you have grains, when you eat wheat, it all breaks down into sugar in your body, into the glucose load in your body, because your body will activate insulin. Your pancreas has to get involved. And over long term, you're going to end up with pancreatic insufficiency. I am seeing this across the board in my lab work. And if you get your pancreas malfunctioning too far down, you got pancreatic insufficiency. And I am seeing that in the labs, guys. And that means your body's breaking down. Sugar will break your body down. It may not be super fast. You may not notice it. You may not even be aware that it's happening. But here's some of the symptoms of it. When you actually have too much sugar in your body, what is happening is you're losing digestive function, because when you stop eating fat and protein and you eat more ultra processed foods, what happens is your stomach acid gets lower. You stop, your gallbladder stops functioning as readily, because when you, one of the things Dr. William Davis likes to state is that go on a low fat, high carb diet and go schedule your gallbladder surgery, because you're going to get cholestasis. So you're going to have where your bile stops functioning, your stomach acid stops functioning. You'll end up with gas and bloating and GERD. And what's even worse is downstream from that, with that digestion, is you end up with SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and a bloom of pathogenic bacteria. That's horrible. I'm seeing that in the labs too. It's interesting. And I could nerd on that, but I'm not going to get too involved in that specifically, but it is pretty fascinating what we could find in a gastrointestinal test that I run with my clients. So here it is. I mean, if the thing about sugar and why you don't want to eat it, why you want to stop now, is because it turns on your sugar cravings. It turns on your hunger. A lot of people want to not have those cravings. A lot of people want to not have to be a slave to sugar, not want to have to eat the thing in front of us. I always was there. I hated it. Back in the day, this is what I had to do. And it was not something I wanted to do. This is what I did, because I had a sugar craving and I couldn't stop the hormonal surge of seeking out food, because my sugar switch was flipped on. I would go to the mall, to Mrs. Fields, and I wouldn't buy just one cookie. I would buy two. I would get nuts thinking that was healthier, but they were covered in vegetable oil and who knows what else. And I always had to be eating something. If I was traveling, it was jelly beans and ice cream. I had to have ice cream, and ice cream all the time. But you know what? I did switch to frozen yogurt, thinking that was a healthier choice. But I was a slave to that frozen yogurt, because you know what? Your body can't tell the difference. It might sound healthy, but it isn't any healthier if it has sugar in it. And I craved it. I remember when my oldest son was a baby, and I would go to the frozen yogurt store, and I would sit outside, and I could swear people were just looking at me, because I knew I was just feeding this craving of sugar, and that I had to eat it. And I ate it every day. I ate something every day. How many of you had just get in the car and drive to go get that soft serve ice cream, or to drive to the store and just find yourself reaching for that something that you just had to have and you couldn't say no to, because if you said no to it, you would just fight it and fight it and fight the craving and never win. Never. We never win. And so we just gave into it. I was trying to explain this to someone who's younger than me, who's a gentleman, and I don't think he could quite understand it, because if you haven't lived it, it's really hard to understand it. That powerful urge to go seek out food, that's our survival switch. And I call it the sugar switch. It's a metabolic switch. But when our sugar switch is flipped on, that's your hormonal switch, and it will cause you to go seek food and eat the food. That's why we can't stop sugar switch. So the sugars, cravings. That's why people say, I've got an addiction to sugar. Oh, I love sugar. I want to eat the sugar. I got to have the thing. You know, that is the sugar switch turned on. But this is why, another reason. Well, let me finish this thought first. So the problem with that is you're just feeling hopeless. That hunger is turned on, and you start to feel like a diet failure. You wake up every morning wondering how you're going to get that weight off. Who's been there? You know, put a little like in the comments here on Instagram, and or tag me if you're on YouTube, because I'm recording this to both. But how many people wake up every morning and worry about what you're going to do for the day? What are you going to wear? What's going to fit? What are you going to eat? How are you going to start the day right? And will you be able to get through the day without eating the thing that is your kryptonite? Like mine was ice cream. And even when I started a low-carb diet, I switched to keto ice cream for the longest time. And yesterday I had a moment, the last 2 days, that I just wanted something a little different, because I felt tired. And so what I make, well, this, you have to have food rules. So I kept it simple. My food rules are I could have something as long as I make it keto or low carb, even though I'm trying to be more animal based right now and trying to focus more on protein for muscle synthesis and to just fine tune my body and my lifestyle. But this is what I did. I had frozen coconut milk cubes, full fat coconut milk cubes in the freezer. And sometimes what I want to do on a hot day or during the summer is I like to put that with some coffee and some coconut milk or water and add stuff to it. Like I add creatine, I added collagen, although it didn't melt in that well because you have to melt it first. It doesn't really mix into cold or something frozen. And I made ice cream out of it. And then I put it in the freezer and got it really cold. I always had to have things solid, really cold so I could kind of chew on it. And that was my little special treat. But it was a healthier version. But I still look for that craving every now and then. I still look for that dopamine hit where I want the ice cream. But I know what will happen to my body if I eat that sugar, and I won't eat it. And most people working in the functional world understand how damaging it can be. Some people can manage it, other people can't. If you're overweight, you've had obesity, if you're up over 200 pounds at any time in your life, you more than likely have the obesity gene and are working towards being an obesity survivor. Maybe like me, you're more of a wounded warrior because there's still a lot of pain inside the body from living with obesity for most of my life. And somebody used that term with me the other day. I'm wounded warrior, and I'm kind of like playing with it because I want to show you or tell you something that happened to me to kind of give you a picture of how I was and why I won't go back to sugar. Because there's oftentimes people will say, well, you don't have any sugar, you're not going to eat anything, you're not going to have a treat. There's some people who can have a treat. I'm going to maybe have a bite or have a piece of birthday cake once a year or have a treat like that or go to Italy and eat the thing. I can't do that ever because I will lose my brain function and I will flip on that sugar switch and then I would probably binge and I won't like myself and I'll feel miserable. And I don't want to go there. I don't know what would happen because I'm not going to go there. But once upon a time, when my youngest son was about 9, 8 or 9, it was the cutest thing when he was 8 or 9. Oh my God, they're so lovable. I miss that age. We went on a cruise. And I had to use borrowed clothes because I wasn't going to go to the store and actually buy something new. I was not going to look in those mirrors and look at my body and know that I didn't look good because that's how I felt my body. And when I was at that point, I was 200 pounds. And I have depression when I'm 200 pounds. When I lose the weight, I lose the depression. And that was something I look back on and understand that is a very fascinating process that happens. And I never liked that. And I was looking for my weight loss solution. And I didn't feel good in my body. But on that cruise, this is what happened. I was walking on the top deck and somebody aimed a camera at me. Scared the hell out of me. I don't know how many of you can relate. I just sent my email out today about talking about, has anybody aimed a camera at you? Like, what do you do when you're 200 pounds and overweight and you're very, very embarrassed about how you look and ashamed? Those are some feelings we all have, and I completely understand them. I ducked. I physically ducked. To this day, I will never forget that. Although I've hidden the feeling and I hidden the thought, every now and then it pops back out. Someone reminded me of that. Like what had wounded me? That had wounded me. But I'm a warrior, just like you can be a warrior. I'm a woman, hear me roar. We can win this battle of obesity and be a survivor. We can lose 100 pounds. I did it. I didn't completely do it alone, and I can see if I can remember to talk about this a little bit more. And because I'm trying to stay on track with my focus here, let me show you a picture of what I looked like at 200 pounds and what really broke my heart. Okay. This was me. And you see that? See how sad she was? I was always sad. See that gorgeous little boy? He was always giving me hugs. If it wasn't for him, I couldn't have been a survivor. Sorry, guys. Told you. I still have some wounds there. That's what sugar does to you. For people who have leaky gut and have that gut-brain connection that causes the depression, that bipolarism, it is not a disease. It is a dysfunction of blood sugar metabolism and your metabolism overall. It has nothing to do with having a brain that has chemical imbalances and you need to be on an antibiotic. You need to be on a prescriptive medicine. It has nothing to do with that. If you follow Georgia Ede and Chris Palmer, their books will tell you about brain energy and how you need to be on a ketogenic diet to actually get your brain to function and focus. That's where I need to be. And if anybody has bipolarism, depression, or any kind of symptom, and they're worried about brain dysfunction, you need to be on a low-carb diet. You need to be on a keto diet, and you need to listen to Georgia Ede. She is so powerful. She is out there making the rounds right now, and she will let you know what you need to do. But it's also what I already started doing and why I created the holistic low-carb method, because this is what not only fixes your brain, but helps you age healthier as a woman over 50. You can age healthy as a woman over 50. You can flip your disease-causing genes off by flipping your sugar switch off to live a life without disease in your body for longevity. How many of you out there, and send me a heart here on YouTube or Instagram, send me a heart if you want to live at home, independent, into your 90s and not in a nursing home. I would rather live on a cruise ship. There's some people out there who are actually choosing to have their home in a cruise ship. That sounds kind of fascinating. I think I would prefer an RV over that, some RV living. But it's super interesting to think. And the studies are showing it, that if we stop the sugar in our diet and if we eat a more holistic, ancestral-based diet, without the toxins and look at our overall environment and how is it damaging us and how can we correct it. That's the holistic part of it. So it's not just diet. You can get 10 to 20 more years of active living. And I was just thinking about my dad the other day. He died from diabetes, from heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease without any legs. He was just tired. He was just ready to go. He didn't want to do dialysis. He died from diabetes. And he never stopped the sugar. And I didn't understand it back when he died. But I was going through that, and I was headed there. I had prediabetes, and I didn't know it. No, not too many people will tell you now. They're actually saying that, that you could be normal at a certain blood sugar range, I heard the other day, in the 7s with the glucose. And they're not even going to tell you that you're in danger, that that's just normal. But don't live normal. You want to live an exceptional lifestyle, one that is going to be healthy for you. And so you want to stop eating the sugar now. I understand sugar is an addiction. I understand what it can do for you, what it can do to you. This is another picture of me at 200 pounds. I had to borrow that dress. I wasn't going to buy a new one, and I hated that dress. But, you got to get pictures. You're going on a cruise. Your kids are happy. You want to have a good time. I did the best I could, even with all the sadness that I had. That's what we do as women. We're survivors. And we survive, even wounded. We become warriors. And I just want you to know the why and the how. Why you need to get off the processed food, the ultra-processed food, which is full of sugar, empty calories, processed everything, to the point where your body is starving. People who eat those only and live in those food deserts that don't have any choice for fresh food, they're not getting any nutrition. Those foods don't give us nutrition. They just fill up your stomach. Makes you feel good in the moment, but will cause you to have dysfunctional brain health in the long run. So that's why we want to stop eating sugar now. We want a healthy age into our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond as much as we can, but we can't do that if the sugar load on our body is too high and your insulin levels are elevated all the time to the point where your pancreas has to work overtime and you end up with endocrine dysfunction and an insulin pancreatic insufficiency. What's really interesting, when I see all these things on the lab, I just get more and more excited about helping women reclaim the second half of their life, to live life healthy, aging healthy, and living their best life. And we can all do that, but we can't do it if we're eating too much sugar in our diet. Having a bite, if you can stop at a bite, will not damage you if you can lose the weight while you're doing that. Weight gain is a symptom of being unhealthy. If you have too much weight, you have visceral fat around your belly, around your neck, in your face. You can see it as puffiness that makes you look and feel unattractive. That's visceral fat and endocrine dysfunction. We want that to go away. You could be skinny fat, eating too much sugar, and you could be riddled with visceral fat. And it'll be in your heart, just like animal meat has fat in the muscle meat. We store our fat in our muscle meat. Guess what your heart is? Your heart's a muscle. You could store fat around and in your heart. Isn't that a picture to think about? That's why I want you to think about why you would want to stop eating sugar as a woman over 50 and why it's really damaging to our body. You just don't want it in your lifestyle because one bite can cause you to have obesity over time. And if you can't stop the weight gain, then there's a problem. If you can stop the weight gain and manage your diet and you can only eat one bite, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. But I'm not one of those people, and there's a lot of people who are not. If 50% of the population is overweight, that means there's too much sugar going into everybody's body. The best thing you could do is stop eating any liquid sugar. Liquid sugar will cause you to lose your teeth because it causes gingivitis and bacterial overgrowth in your mouth. And it will cause you to have some kind of brain dysfunction and eventually diabetes. One of the things that I like to do, here's a little quick tip. I take my electrolyte and I put it in the bottle. Now, this bottle was only half full when I put my electrolyte in there because otherwise it fizzes all the way up and it will spill out. And so then I added a little bit more. Most of the time I add it to a cup, but I was coming on this call and so I wanted a little bit of drink. So I added my electrolyte to a half-filled bottle and then added more on top of that and kind of stirred it up. And it did try to fizz over, but I got it under control. But that's something that I really like. Here's another hack that's really fun to do. I actually take an instant organic coffee packet and I actually put that in a cup with a little bit of warm water, just a tiny bit, just to mix it a little bit. And then I add Pellegrino water on top of that. Oh my gosh, it fizzes up like a root beer float. I don't need to have my coffee sweet. You could add a drop of monk fruit to that, but it's just so delicious. And that's really what helps me keep going. I have to have a high fat diet because my brain will function. And the reason I know that is because I practice this lifestyle. And I am realizing now that we need more fat for better brain health. And if you have never heard about a protein poisoning is when a term that was used back when the prospectors used to eat rabbit and squirrel and they didn't have enough fat on their body. And if you ate them multiple days at a time, you could get sick, called protein poisoning. And so that was when you want to add more fat to your protein. So that's what the Eskimos do. They always dip their meat into the fat. So they eat high fat with their protein, not just high protein. And otherwise it doesn't work and you can get sick. And so one of the things I noticed recently, if you're staying on with me now, here's another tip. If you feel sleepy after eating your protein, it could be that you're not taking in enough fat. And so I am kind of putting more into Carb Manager. I want to add in my protein and my fat, and I want to see what my ratios are. I want my ratio of fat to be higher than my protein, and it should be a minimum of 1-to-1, but not lower because we don't want more protein. We want more fat so that our brain can function and so that our body can utilize all the nutrition that our body is getting. So I wanted to talk about a little bit more about some of the symptoms of too much sugar in your body that you may not be aware of. And back in my mid-30s, one of the things that was happening to me, besides being 225 pounds, is the depression, severe asthma, hacking, coughing, sinusitis, bronchitis all the time, to the point where they had to give me a breathing machine that I had to take home that I relied on for years. But a couple of years ago, I actually threw that in the trash on a reel. So if you go deep down into my reels, you'll see that reel where I threw out my breathing machine because my what do they call those doctors? Breathing doctors. Anyways, I was told I would always be on an inhaler, but my doctor was wrong. He's not wrong for the standard normal person who has inflammation, but I had beat the inflammation. I'd turned off my inflammation. I'd flipped my sugar switch off. So I no longer need to have an inhaler, and I no longer have asthma. Asthma is because of the food we eat. The food you eat gives you information to your body. So depending on how you want your body to be, you have to program it with information. And food is information to your body. If you're feeding your body sugar and you're not getting the body you want to have, and you don't have the energy you need or the focus and the quality of life you want to have, then you might want to stop and look at the ultra-processed food you're eating and where can you cut back on that? How can you get your carbs under 100 so that you're not having that sugar overload in your body, so that you could flip your sugar switch off, flip your disease-causing genes off, and reclaim your health. And I'm getting, this is something that's kind of my soapbox that I'm getting mad about recently, is that so many people just don't know what this does to them. And there's so much ultra-processed food being pushed out there. Again, your taste buds have been hijacked if you're eating all that stuff. But you need to know that so that you're not held hostage. The medical system is a healthcare system that is broken. It's a sick care system. And if you're going in there with pain and inflammation and a symptom, as something you're trying to get fixed by the system, it's never going to be a solution. It's just going to be a Band-Aid, because the solution is nutrition. The right nutrition for your body, depending on how your, like functional labs look. You need to have functional labs run, look under the hood to find out what's going on. I recently had a client that had very little symptoms, very asymptomatic. And if you think about the wellness, the wellness meter, you could be up here at 50%, or you could be, down here, you might not have any symptoms. And you start, it's 50%, you may still not have any symptoms. 60%, you may not have any symptoms. Get over that 60%, and all of a sudden you're symptomatic, but you've been developing disease and problems all the way up to that 50%, and you're asymptomatic, no symptoms in the body. So I had a client that didn't have any symptoms that she could really relate to. Although later she told me she had rosacea. She didn't mention that in the beginning because she didn't realize it was a problem. Huge discovery in her GI map test. Her Dutch test, just 2 issues. And melatonin was low, which is a kind of like a window into the gut health. It's like if your melatonin is tanked, it's more than likely you have gut inflammation. She had a lot of gut inflammation, a lot of bacteria that was pathogenic. It's really interesting. Without any symptoms, to see what's going on in the body so you can stop it. Stop the sugar, stop the symptoms, or no symptoms, stop the disease progression as best you can in your body. That's the whole idea, that they're not going to tell you about that. You could use food as information to actually stop disease progression, because 9 out of 10 of these diseases that we are dealing with, they're lifestyle diseases that are reversible. It's not coming from me. I've been listening to the studies. I follow all the doctors, all the studies. I live and breathe this process. As a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I live this lifestyle. I study it daily. I work with my clients. I discover so many interesting things. I discover the hidden healing opportunities. I discover the weight loss blocks, and I help them correct it. It's so fascinating what our bodies can do when we stop eating the sugar, when we stop the glucose load on our body, and we go back to eating ancestral health the way we were designed. Yes, food is addictive. That's why sometimes you just want to focus on getting your carbs under 100, keeping the fruit. The fruit will help you with some of these cravings. Fruit is still sugar, and depending on how much of it you eat, you could still have a sugar load on your body that's not going to give you the health that you want. That's where I was when I started keto. I was nibbling on golden berries, goji berries, and mulberries. You may have heard the story. But my eyes were wonky. I was still having anxiety, still depression. I was still 185 pounds. I was working on keeping my weight under 200. How many of you can kind of relate to that? I just have to keep my weight under a certain point. Usually when I'm working with clients that have weight over 200 pounds, I might get you down under 200 pounds, because that's that psychological situation where we just need to be on the other side of that number to feel more successful, to feel that we're in control, because it's really hard. and especially trying to do it yourself. And when you don't really understand the process, you haven't succeeded yet, and you don't know exactly what it is that you need to do. That's why support and accountability is huge. I didn't do it by myself in the beginning. I followed the bulletproof process. I followed Dave Asprey. I listened to every single one of his podcasts. Believe me, I did. I would get on a road trip and I would binge listen to that. I would be crying. I'd be excited. I'd be ready to go home and try a new supplement because I just knew that was going to be the solution. And one time it was. One time I was listening to Bioptimizers on the Dave Asprey podcast. There was 2 of the shows, and I listened to them again. Listened to the old one and a new one, and then the old one. And when I got home, I invested in my health. I bought all those products. I specifically bought stuff that helped my digestion, a proteolytic, probiotic and digestive enzyme, specific ones. And I busted my weight loss block. That was so exciting. I effortlessly lost 15 pounds. And if you go to my links in my bio on Instagram, you can see the Capex link there. So if you're interested in buying this, please buy it through me. I'd appreciate it. And the trick here is Capex is a really good place to start with if you have weight loss blocks and you know you've got digestive dysfunction, you just can't lose the weight. It's a good place to start. You've got to maximize digestion because it's not just diet. You could do everything you want to do with the diet. And I've had several carnivores come into my program and they can't quite shake the weight off and they just don't know what to do because they have insulin resistance and the weight's not coming off. But the labs help us find the hidden healing opportunities to help with that. But with the Capex and the other digestive enzymes that I took, because I also took other ones just before bed. So that was the secret, is to take it before bed as well. And to use the P308, I think it was called, as the proteolytic enzyme as well. 15 pounds came off in 3 months effortlessly because I busted open that biofilm. I broke down all that protein that was just hanging out of my gut and causing me to have dysfunction. So that was super exciting. So there's so many things we can learn. And this is why I'm successful, because I want to learn and I'm going to listen and I'm going to practice and I'm going to experiment. And I have done that and I did that and I will do that with you as well as my client. We're going to figure this out. What is it that your body needs to do? I don't do any cookie cutter programs. I customize what you need to do. And that's what I did with the client that I just found out. No symptoms, but a lot of gut dysfunction. Oh my gosh, this is what you need to do specifically. This is what's correlating with your labs. And her Dutch test also correlated with her food sensitivity test and this gut test. It was really amazing, that correlation. And she had no clue. She would never have guessed what was going on. And we don't. We have to look under the hood to find out what's going on in our body, why we want to stop the sugar, especially after 50. We want to stop that sugar. We want to fix our digestion. Because if we don't, we're going to have blood sugar imbalances, blood sugar dysregulation, and metabolic dysfunction, end up with brain dysfunction. That is just the natural progression of a body that's breaking down. It's a simple kind of line that you start here and you start building up. And the doctors don't often tell you that you're in this side of the reference range and all of a sudden you're going to pop over here. So they're not going to say anything or do anything until you pop over that reference range. But what if you could stop it before you got there? That's disease prevention. That's what you want to do. You don't want to have disease. We want to prevent it. And we can. That's the great thing about this. As a woman over 50, as a woman over 60, I'm here to tell you the truth. Why you want to know this and what you can do about it. Because I want to save 1,000 women to help them rebuild their health, to get their life back on track, because you can, but you just need to understand that it can be done and that why should you do it? A lot of the times people think it's too restrictive, but you're being told it's too restrictive by people who are skinny and by people who are dietitians who are the dietitians that are specifically looking at the ADA and the medical system, who are talking dogma. Those are the skinny narratives that never worked, because people do not lose weight permanently on a higher carb, low fat diet ever. They've never been able to prove that any more than they can prove cholesterol causes heart disease, because it does not. But those are the dogmas that are out there. Those are the narratives that are out there that you need to understand. And if you want resources, I give resources out. Every client I get, I'll guide into the right direction depending on what they need. Because I want you to learn. This is part of a functional diagnostic nutritionist, teaching you and educating you what you need to do so that you could take your health into your own hands. When you're working with me, I get you started. You're going to break through 20 pounds of weight loss when you reset your metabolism with me. And you're going to figure out what your weight loss blocks are and where your hidden healing opportunities are so you can put your body back together again like Humpty Dumpty. Because that's what we need to do. We need to patch our bodies back together, and hopefully it all seals and heals. That's what we need to do with the gut. You've got leaky gut. Almost every American has a leaky gut. And Europe, too. That is part of the problem that causes autoimmunity. If you have pain and autoimmunity in your body, if you have neuropathy anywhere in your body, that's a sugar crush to your nervous system. If you have carpal tunnel, if you have foot symptoms, pain in your arms, arthritis, that's a sugar crush to your nervous system. That's what sugar does to the body. And not everybody's aware of that. That's why I want to shout this from the rooftop. This is why I get so frustrated. And I don't want to be one of the few women over 50 who understands this and is taking our health into control. Join me here on YouTube. Follow, like my videos. Send them to people you know, because this is going to take a tribe. We're all on a mission as women over 50 to at least send this message out to other people that we could choose to be healthy. Health is a choice, and it doesn't start at the medical center. It starts at home. If the food you're eating is not programming your body for health, then you're going to live at the medical system, and you're going to lose 10 to 20 years of active living. But you can stop that. I want you to know you can stop that when you stop eating sugar. When you stop eating the sugar, when you stop eating too much wheat and grains in the diet, when you stop that sugar load on your body, you're flipping the sugar switch off. This is the epigenetics process. Your DNA are not set in stone. I've been sending out podcast requests, and that got me to thinking more about this, because obesity, you're being lied to. This is what pisses me off. Okay, guys, this is pissing me off. Obesity is not a disease. You are not stuck with obesity. That is the food that's hijacked your taste buds. That's hijacked and kept your health hostage. It's keeping you hostage in the medical system because you're patient for life as long as you eat that UPF food. This pisses me off because I was obesity. I had obesity. I'm an obesity survivor. It is not a disease. Yes, I have the obesity gene. Yes, I have the propensity to be obese. I could be diabetic. My dad died of diabetes. My eldest sister, died from diabetes at over 400 pounds. She couldn't stop hers, but she didn't know what to do. Nobody helped her. I didn't know soon enough to help her. She died in 2020. Well, fortunately, before the situation overcame her, it was early 2020. I'm kind of grateful that she didn't suffer any more than she did. And my brother, you'll have to take a look at his pictures in my Instagram post, his before and after pictures. He was like walking death. And you know what the doctors just said? It's time for insulin. That's what they'll tell you. It's time for insulin. It's time for insulin. But what if you could reverse that? Well, you can. This is what pisses me off. You are not stuck with obesity. You are not stuck as a diabetic. You are not stuck sick and overweight and tired. Especially as a woman over 50, you can reverse that. This is what they're not going to tell you, and this is why I get so mad. Obesity is not a disease. It is a lifestyle dysfunction of blood sugar dysregulation and a metabolism that isn't functioning. You can fix it. I fixed it. It's fixable. But you have to take the sugar out of your diet. That is why you want to stop eating sugar now, especially as a woman over 50, because we are more insulin resistant, estrogen levels are low, and we're no longer able to manage our insulin resistance as readily. And so therefore we are more insulin resistant, and we are going to gain more weight, and it's going to go to the belly. It's going to go to your face. You're going to create more visceral fat. You're just going to feel tired and unattractive, and you're not going to feel good. But worse, I've already lost 2 friends before they even hit 60. I don't want anybody else to have to die. I have a sister who's dying. It's not fun. And I'm never going to laugh at any of that. But I'm just going to get mad. And I think you should get mad too. You're being lied to. Obesity is not a disease. You can practice epigenetics. That's what I did. That's what my brother Mark did. He is no longer walking death. His blood sugar regulation is good. He's got his A1C under 6. Mine is under 6. Mine's like 5.7. Mine's psychologically high because my red blood cells last longer because I'm on a higher meat diet. So the numbers are skewed when you're on a higher keto meat diet. But he reversed his diabetes. And he's doing so much better. And he can fight the other diseases that he might have in his body or whatever else tries to come at him. He's a survivor now. He's an obesity survivor. There's 2 of us in my family that are obesity survivors. I would like it to be more. I want it to be everywhere. I want everybody to understand that we can change this. We can reverse at risk for disease, and reverse obesity is not a disease. You do not need Ozempic. You do not need GLP-1s. Guess what? Increases GLP-1 naturally in your body. Protein. All you have to do is eat protein and you're satiated. I hardly ever crave food. If I do, it's usually because I'm sad about something and I want a dopamine hit, or I'm tired and I'm distracted and I'm just like, okay, I've opened up my eating window. What am I going to eat? That's why I still like to drink the Perrier waters. They fill up your stomach. It feels good. And I'm not hungry right now. I've got chicken sausages in the toaster oven that I cooked up in some olive oil that I'm going to have for dinner. And there's a can of sardines that I'm going to have with that because it isn't quite the right amount of protein. I want 30 grams of protein to have muscle synthesis so that I can actually build muscle in my 60s. And I already did my arm work today, and I'm going to go practice tennis as soon as I get off this call. Hopefully I don't run out of light. That's my new passion right now, is studying tennis, or doing tennis and learning tennis. Because that's the other side of a holistic lifestyle. It can't just be food. You have to look at your environment. You have to figure out what your healing opportunities are, and we need to correct them. We can find your weight loss blocks. We can figure out what your hidden healing opportunities are and put your body back together again with functional labs. That's how I help my clients. But I use my certainty, my conviction, and my passion to help you tune your health so you can reclaim your health for the second half of your life as your best life. This is your health adventure experience, and this is your staycation. You are worth any investment, and this is not the most expensive big program. But if you would like to find out more about my program, I have free health adventure strategy call where you can come and tell me about your concerns, your main complaints, what's going on in your body, and I can help you troubleshoot that. And then I can let you know how I can support you, because I will and I can. If you want it, I will give it to you. But you have to want it. You have to want to be healthier. You have to want to get off the UPF food, the ultra-processed foods. You want to get your taste buds corrected. You want to correct your gut bacteria. As long as you feed them sugar, you will be feeding your fat bacteria who are going to store more calories for you. What you want to do is stop feeding your fat bacteria. Feed your skinny bacteria good fats, short-chain fatty acids, and collagen, so that they can thrive, so you can thrive. It's all about your gut health. And you're going to have gut dysfunction and not even know it. But if you're already having symptoms, then you're already past that 60% on that wellness meter that I talked about earlier in the program, here in this call. You can be an obesity survivor just like me, but you have to make the choice. You have to stop eating the processed food. Get your carbs under 100 to start. And you need to pull in a functional health nutritionist to help guide you for the nutrition that you need. The reason I start all my clients on the holistic low carb method is to create a low carb lifestyle so that you can be a survivor, so that you get to the point where you never want to eat that crap again because you feel so much better. That's when you've got it. That's when I feel like I've been successful. When you drop that 20 to 25 pounds and reset your metabolism, and you say you're never going to eat that crap again, I know I did my job. That lights me up. As a woman over 50, the woman over 60, this is what we need to do. We don't really have a choice. The choice is, when do you want to start? When do you want to start living your best life? When do you want to plan that next best vacation? When do you want to give yourself a closet audit and get rid of all the large clothes and bring in all the little clothes? When do you want to wake up in the morning and not worry about what you're going to wear? Not worry about what you're going to eat. Every morning I wake up and I feel my body. I'm like, it's slender. And then sometimes I will like, what if I ate too much yesterday and what if I gained weight? But you know what? Every time I feel that way, I make myself step on that scale. And you know what I see? Every single time I do that, my weight is fine. It's 129 pounds. Maybe it could be less, but that's where I'm at. That's where I stabilized as I'm learning to build muscle. And I'm okay with that. But I'm not gaining weight back by eating food. I am eating over 100 grams of fat and over 100 grams of protein every day, because that's what's going to nourish my body to keep my disease risk low. And we also have to look at the holistic side of this and get at that circadian balance every single day. I drink my coffee outside when the wind's not blowing. Every now and then I've been waking up at 5 o'clock, 5:30, and I get outside and it's still dark and I can look at the stars and the moon, and it just feels so good. And I wait for that sunrise to come off and I take my glasses off and I'm drinking my coffee. And I'm like, this is it. This is why I wake up early, because my body's programmed to. I go to bed when it's dark. People laugh at me, but I don't want to have any blue light on at night. And I'll lay in bed and I'll have the red light features on my phone, red light in my room, and I'll have my blue light blocking glasses on for extra protection to protect me from blue light exposure. Because did you know that blue light exposure at night raises your endocrine dysfunction, creates endocrine dysfunction, raises your insulin level, raises your cortisol levels, and hinders your sleep, hinders your brainwashing, creates more risk for brain disease in the long run, and it will make you hungry. When you have that happening, you're hungrier the next day. And so you wonder why it's harder to control your sugar cravings. That's why. That's one of the reasons why. But there's so many tricks that we can do to stop you from eating after dark, to get your hunger to turn off, to create that GLP-1 naturally. Again, obesity is not a disease. You do not have to suffer from it. You do not need Ozempic. You do not need Ozempic. What you need is a low-carb lifestyle. And you could feel good about that. And sure, it's hard in the beginning. That's why you work with me. So I could get you started. So I could lend you my superpower, my certainty and conviction, and my lived experience will be yours. And you get to ask me questions as much as you want with cell phone contact, because that's how I work this. It's a lot of work. I spent all of Monday and even more time before that, but all of Monday I was analyzing tests and I was presenting these tests all week. And I'm just so grateful that the clients have the information that they needed to fight for their life, to reverse the risk for disease, to put their bodies back together again, because now they have the information they needed to fight this. You need to be a warrior. We are warriors. We are women heroes roar. We can do this. I've got you. So get out there. Get your carbs under 100. Stop eating the ultra-processed food. It's going to kill you, literally. Eat the fruit. Eat the fruit. Make your own ice cream at home using monk fruit or allulose. Allulose also helps you create GLP-1. Who'd have thought, right? I was scared of that initially, but if I want to have a little bit of sweetener, I'm going to use the allulose. And I use monk fruit if I want a little sweetener in my matcha green tea or something. We want to create GLP-1 naturally. We can turn off our appetite, but you'll have to take the sugar out. The reason why people can't stop the appetite is because sugar keeps your appetite turned on. That's that hormonal switch. That hormonal switch for your sugar switch will make you eat the food. It causes the heart disease, creates that uric acid pathway, the polyol pathway, and you will gain weight. And you will get sick. And that is why we get sick by Ben Bickman, and why we and the other book by Gary Taubes is why we get fat. There's so many good books out there. The Sugar Crush is a really good one, very graphic as to what sugar will do to your body. And you wouldn't even realize what all the symptoms could be. But you can get out there and fight this. Be a warrior and realize that you want to stop eating sugar now so that you can get control of your health and start living your best life, exceptional life. You don't want to be normal. Normal is 50% of the population is overweight, and normal 50% of the population, 80%, is insulin resistant, which is a pre-diabetic state. And do this for your grandchildren, for your children, because you need to model what they need to do, because they don't know. They're confused. They're not taken care of. Children born today are being born insulin resistant. It's sad. 1 in 3 children will have autism. What if we could model for the younger generation what we can do now, because we're stronger and we are wiser and we know that we could fight this battle? Obesity is not a disease. You can change this. Be obese. I'm an obesity survivor. My brother's an obesity survivor. And maybe obesity sounds like a big word, or like a word that is derogatory. It's not really. I mean, it's a description of somebody who has intractable weight and weight gain, and you have a BMI that's too high, and you just have metabolic dysfunction because your weight is stuck, and the food you eat causes obesity. It's just a term. And it's hard. It is hard. And I remember, some of you came on late. I want to show you my picture again. This was me sad when I was on my cruise. My little son was always giving me hugs. His name is Scott. I was 200 pounds. I was miserable. I was depressed, and I couldn't be happy. And it breaks my heart thinking about that, how I wasn't always there for my kids. But I'm going to model for them now. And I'm not going to let myself be sick and unhappy again, because I know what to do. And I want to teach you what to do. So hang out with me. Be here with me on Instagram and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, I've put the link in for Instagram. Come and say hi. And in Instagram, I have my YouTube station and my podcast station. So go in there and listen, join me, ask questions, because I'm here. On Facebook, I have a private Facebook group. So say hi on Facebook, and I'll invite you into my private Facebook group, where you'll get more information more directly. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to go play tennis, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.